Hi everyone, I'm Law of the West, and for all the OG citizens out there, I'd like to welcome you back to Levski. And for anyone who's new to the game, Levski was a landing zone that was temporarily placed in Stanton a long time ago, and due to server memory restraints, it had to be taken down with the promise that one day it would return after the Nyx System, which was its rightful home, was put into the game. The Nyx System was discovered in 2582 by Carla Larry, and it's mostly covered by a huge sprawling dark dust cloud that greatly impairs visibility and interferes with ship scanners. It's considered to be unclaimed territory and consists of 3 planets and 2 large asteroid fields. None of the planets are habitable. The first planet is Nyx 1, which is coreless and has already been mined clean by the Gold Horizon Corporation. Nyx 2 has a high pressure atmosphere and thick clouds of acid and carbon dioxide, while Nyx 3 is an ice giant that lacks any atmosphere or valuable minerals. But I suspect that they're going to do the same thing that they did with Pyro and make these planets more accessible for gameplay reasons. The first 2 of its asteroid belts is the Glacium Ring, and at the edge of the Nyx system is a less densely packed ring of asteroids called the Keeger Belt. Nyx also borders on Vandal space, and Vandal raiding parties have been known to hit locations throughout the system. But despite all these dangers, a growing community has managed to exist and even thrive here. And these people have taken up residence in an abandoned mining facility that's hidden deep within the Glacium Ring that sits between Nyx 2 and Nyx 3 on an asteroid called Delamar. It's home to refugees, fugitives, and criminals, and it's also the home for a faction that's known as the People's Alliance. Levski has had a series of updates done to its hangars, its infrastructure, interior, and even the asteroid itself that it resides in. The main entrance has gravity plating around it so you can walk around, but everywhere else on the outside is going to be a true zero-G environment. It now has open landing pads for quick drop-offs and pickups. They've also added gameplay areas around it where various types of missions will take place, and it now has a series of exterior freight elevators. This zero-G environment lends itself to being perfect for a certain kind of specialist type of cargo hauler. The borehole now goes through the entire asteroid, and down at its base is a series of zero-G freight elevators. This same type of functionality is also going to be coming to all space stations of both Stanton and the Pyro system. And the external freight elevators will have direct access to cargo decks so you can quickly sell and pick up your goods. The interior is also being brought up to current gameplay standards by adding places like cargo services and refinement centers. And its interior layout is being updated so you have better access to gameplay spaces. And Nyx will be the next system that they're adding in after Pyro. Repeatedly over the years, the devs have referred to its residents as space hippies because they don't judge and they welcome everyone. But they're really more of an egalitarian community that was sick of living under the thumb of the Messer regime, who were trying to form a self-sustaining independent government. This is the place where lawful and unlawful players alike can come in contact with each other, but everybody's expected to play nice while they're visiting Levski. And no matter what end of the moral spectrum you choose to run your flag under, everyone's going to have a common enemy when you're traveling through the Nyx system, which are the Vandal. And that's because Vandal don't see people in terms of good or bad. Everyone's equally guilty of being a filthy human in their eyes. Nyx also directly connects to a number of different systems including Virgil, Towhill, and Bremen. But more importantly, it also connects to Castra and Pyro. So Nyx, Castra, and Pyro are going to form a naturally interconnected loop that could have some very dangerous but lucrative trade routes in common. Nyx also connects to the Odin system, and Odin is where most of Squadron 42 takes place. I like the idea of Nyx because it represents a different type of environment to play in. It's mostly just dense asteroid fields, kind of like the Rings of Yela, but on a system-wide scale. And the reduced visibility lends itself to more stealth gameplay where smaller ships are going to have a tactical advantage over larger ones. Nyx could end up being part of a potentially lucrative trade route for people who are willing to make the trip. And that's because Levski has a large community that's going to constantly be needing more supplies. And being isolated like they are means that they're not going to be always getting those needs fulfilled on a regular basis like more accessible stations would. And the way the dynamic economy works, the longer that they go without something, the higher the prices are going to be that they're willing to pay for it. So if you time things correctly, you could end up selling them very cheap items for top shelf prices, and that's what's going to end up making it worth the trip. Levski is also going to be a convenient port of call for Hull sea captains, and one day it'll make a nice stopover for people who are traveling to the Odin system. I also really like the idea of possible Vandal encounters happening here. It does have a direct jump point that links it to the Virgil system, which is Vandal territory. And I could see myself at some point gathering a huge fleet of ships together to launch a large-scale attack against the Vandal just to see how far we could push them back. And mining is going to be a huge part of Nyx, and although some very lucrative prospects have already been completely mined like Nyx 1, the Glacium ring is still going to have plenty of ore left in it. It's simply been labeled as no longer being economically feasible for large-scale corporations to mass mine it anymore. But there's still plenty of ore that's been left that could be mined by smaller organizations or solo pilots. Another thing is that the Glacium ring is supposed to be so dense that larger mining ships can't navigate through it. So they're either going to have to stick to its edges or go to the Keegar belt to do their mining. Which means that this asteroid field would be perfect for smaller mining ships to take advantage of. And they could use Levski as a port of call to return back to for all their refining, storing, and selling needs. And since this place is so easy to hide in, I can assume that it's going to end up being a magnet for both criminals and bounty hunters alike. So that's a basic rundown of both Levski and Nyx, as well as a few other things that we can look forward to. I've been your host, Law of the West. Thanks for watching, and take care.